Most of the country in the middle of a heat wave right now, and as it turns out, extreme heat can have a negative impact on your mental health.
Oh, yes, it can. Joining us on the KOGO News Live line, mental health advocate Dr. Marie Cosgrove. So this summertime heat, and I just went through a little heat wave when I was in London. I was tetchy. I was a little frosty and mad. Why does that happen?
Hi, good morning. Well, I think a lot of people are just not used to the heat. Some scientists say that it's caused by changes in serotonin levels because of the heat. However, there was also a contradictory study just a few days ago that talked about how that's really not the case about the serotonin levels. So there's contradictory information, but I'm actually in Cancun right now facilitating a workshop. And the heat here is extremely hot, and the people are so friendly. So I think that a lot of people just aren't used to it. And, yes, it can be agitating when you're in the heat. It's not something that you're used to. I grew up in the South Texas heat where it's it gets up to 110, 115 degrees by the border in McAllen, Texas. I now live in Ohio. And when it gets 90 degrees, people freak out, and they're like, there's a heat wave. It's horrible. And, of course, this summer it's gotten hotter than that. But people aren't, when you're not used to something, it becomes uncomfortable, and people don't like change. So now we're experiencing extreme heat in areas where it wasn't normally it doesn't get that hot normally. There's parts of the country. I just got back from London earlier this summer. I was in London. And the heat over there, they're not used to it. They don't have air conditioning in London. That's not something that's normal like it is in the U.S. Everybody has air conditioning for the most part. Over there, the majority do not have air conditioning because it doesn't get too hot over in the U.K. And so it's been horrendous for them. And you can imagine it's something different. It's extremely hot, and they're not prepared to deal with that.
So what are some tips for keeping our cool?
So first thing I always say is personal responsibility. There's things we cannot control, and the weather is one of them. So being able to recognize that there's some things you can't control. So if you become overwhelmed with anxiety, because that's one of the big triggers of this heat wave is anxiety, talk to someone. If you need to speak to a health expert or a mental health expert, talk to someone. And, it could be also some underlying issues going on, and then the heat just causes you to totally snap. Because I was looking at they say that the suicide rates have gone up tremendously during this time period. And I was looking back historically, it seems to be a pattern that when there's heat waves, suicide rates go up. And I don't believe it's necessarily just the heat, you want to go kill yourself. There's some underlying things going on, but it just kind of triggers and takes you off the edge if that's something that you're not used to living with the heat. So there's a new 3-digit suicide lifeline, and it is 988. So if you're feeling suicidal or you have a friend that you're concerned about, you can call 988 now, and there's also a text, which is 741-741 that you can text if you're feeling anxiety.
All right.
Don't be afraid to reach out to someone. There's nothing wrong with a lot of times we feel too prideful to reach out to someone to talk about.
All right, we're out of time, Dr. Marie Cosgrove. Thank you so much for your time this morning and for the information.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.